Roger has been part of our leadership board, has just been an encouragement and a joy over the years. And he just has a little bit to share, a faith story. We're going to do it kind of in an interview fashion for him. And so Roger, if you would start and just tell the audience a little bit about yourself.
Okay. Thank you. It's a real joy to be here. And the double E's, I think, enthusiasm, and I forgot already what the other one was. But the energy, that's what it was. Enthusiasm and energy is right here. So that kind of indicates where I'm coming from. I'm 85 years old, so I don't always remember a lot of stuff, and it kind of, goes through and gets stuck in there or something like that. So my situation is that, I'm going to say 85 years old, but I've been married 64 years, and that was a blessing right there. And unfortunately, I get a little emotional when I say something like that, because God has blessed me so much. I've been a Christian for 62 years. So what I wanted to do is just share a little bit about my life and with the young people here, because to me, this is the future of the church. I love being here singing with you because I don't know a note of what I'm singing. I just sing the words anyway, just to follow along. So I'm participating with that. So I was born in a small town in northern Iowa. It wasn't too far over the border, so don't hold too much against me on that. Just, 40 miles, maybe something like that. My career was as an engineer. I worked for Lockheed and all the way out in California. Now I stayed there a long time, so you can let me know about the Californians. They don't bother me a bit, but we're slowly trying to become Minnesotans now. We commuted here for 20 years and had a place on the lake when I retired. Now we're living here permanently. We live in Park Rapids, so I'm trying to adopt to the Minnesota jargon. So that's kind of my history, where we're at. Okay.
Well, life had some challenges growing up. And would you share a little bit about that?
Certainly. See, we're a Mutt and Jeff type thing or something like that. I don't know. So what I'm going to share is that things weren't always appear to be good for me, but in my heart, they always were. My parents divorced when I was 7 years old. Just take me a moment to think about that. So. And I lived with my mother for the next several years until I married. And my mother, in a small town like Manly, it was Manly, Iowa. If you're from anybody with Manly from here? Probably not. There's only about 1,200 people that live there. So my mother was in a small town and my father was in a small town. So my mother and I moved to Des Moines, and we moved to Des Moines when I was 7 years old and starting second grade. I remember when she took me to the school and introduced me to the principal and so forth, so you'd recognize me when, something went wrong, I might be involved, but that's not really what happened. But she led me there to school. And I went to grade school there, and the Lord was still blessing me, had started blessing me, I'm going to say, when I was in grade school even. I had the privilege of, when I was in 5th and 6th grade, of getting out of school by taking water samples down to the school board, getting on the bus and going down to the school board, because back then, every month they measured the quality of the water and that sort of thing. So I thought, well, why did they choose me? Now I think, why did they choose me? So God was involved in that some way to help give me the trust to do that. So I did that for a couple of years there. And then in junior high, I had the privilege of being a cashier at the food line. We didn't have food lines at grade school, but but something happened there after about it was 2 weeks or so, I learned a lesson, but a $5 bill was missing. And I was called into the principal's office, and I said, I know nothing about the $5 bills. And they believed me and everything, but they reassigned me to another thing, do that. So I learned a lesson there. Don't lie even the first time. If you tell a lie, then it's hard to remember what the truth is if you get asked again. What was my story? My story I just said was, I don't know. And they trusted me in that. So I just wanted to point that things out. So there's more?
Yeah, his parents were divorced in an era where there wasn't a lot of divorce. And he skipped over his grade school experience, but he was an original latchkey kid. So his mom would bring him to school, and then you'd be on your own, right?
That's right, yes. I lived in an apartment on the third floor, and I thought we were living pretty good up there on the third floor of this apartment. And my mother had to work because she was, needed to make some money to support us there. And that I just remember other friends I had thought I was rich because I was living in an apartment. And I didn't know the difference. When I went to play with my other boys and things like that, to me, there was no difference because I went there and the mother was there taking care of them. That was the only difference, but the father was away working. So I didn't know my father was away working. He was just away. And I never heard anything from my father about that. He did supply me with some material things, like a bike arrived at the apartment one day and it was in a box. So my mother and I had to put it together so that I could ride the bike. And when I was in school, 5th grade or something like that, they told me that I did good in math. But the reason I did good in math, you kids maybe know this, is if you do good in school, you can go out, get the programs, and you can go outside to recess. So I was one of the first ones outside to recess. So they told me, well, you should be an engineer. And I thought, well, engineer was driving an engine, a train. So I got it, and my dad did get me an electric train. I had that, so I thought that, well, that's going to be a fun job. It wasn't until later I learned what an engineer really was, and I had to go to college and stuff like that. And but the God was blessing me, is what I'm getting at, and like the song says, all through my life, and those that were with me. And where did I go next? The junior high? Yeah, I think I mentioned junior year in high school.
And so you tell us a little bit about your spiritual journey, because you were in high school and even junior high, and you really didn't have a relationship with Christ yet.
Well, that's true. Like I said, I lived with my mother and she worked. We did go to church occasionally, and I went with her. Once in a while, I went to Sunday school. Sunday school wasn't like it is today, where you have Sunday school, but you also have youth groups, and you have youth ministers and so forth that are working with you and with the groups. And for going, I think, I never had a chance to go to Alaska or anything like that. So I guess I've never really wanted to, but maybe if I did, I didn't have that chance. But we lived in California there. So the other thing, I'm trying to think what the other thing was now.
Bobby.
Yeah, okay, there was something else. Anyway, so in high school is where I met Bobby, and I'll get to that in a minute, but also I went to church a little more often there after I got to meet her, but I also, the Lord was with me because I didn't get in trouble in high school. I very could, but a lot of my friends and kids did have problems in high school. But I wanted to play sports, and I did a pretty good job at it. I was captain of the team and played quarterback and stuff like that. But to play, I couldn't smoke or I couldn't drink. And a lot of the kids in high school did that. But I didn't, and I had no problems with anybody. My friends were mostly the same that didn't do that type of thing. So it's so important for later in life to choose your partners or your friends and know who it is. And mentioning choosing a partner, my partner is Bobby, and we've been married 64 years, and that's still a blessing. I'll just say I'm still learning, and I think she's still learning also. She won't admit to that, but every once in a while I'm right, you know what it is. So we share in that dual thing. But what I want to say is she came from a strict family. I had a mother and a father and a brother who turned out to be a preacher, and a second brother also. But so she had a strict background in going to church, and the youth rallies is what they had back then. Different churches got together at one church, and they had a youth rally. But she was completely different than the way I was raised. I was raised just by my mother. And so we got together. I noticed her, I'll back up. I noticed her walking down the hall in the classroom once. And I said, I got to get to know that girl. And she just started. I was a senior, and she was in her first semester of high school. They had 2 entries in. And I saw her walking down anyway, and I wanted to get to know her. So I'll just mention this. My best friend, I told you, keep an eye on her, because she was in one of her typing classes. My typing class, I didn't have anybody like that. But anyway, he did a little better than taking care. He actually dated her, and I said, no. I said, that wasn't in the deal here. So that's how I met Bobby and got more acquainted and went off to college. My mother did remarry when I went off to college and things, and that bothered me a little bit at first. But I realized how she loved him and he loved her, and he became known as Grandpa Joe as we progressed in that area. And so I'm trying to think what I was doing now. Well, back to Bobby. So when I came home from college, I had to bring my wash and things like that to get him up. And my roommate was the same. He had a girlfriend at the same high school, so he was a Christian also. We kind of supported each other in our Christian life with our girlfriends who were Christians. Both went to churches with them, different churches, but went to churches with our girlfriends and so forth. So that's what led me to Christ and understanding. When I graduated, I did graduate. I became an engineer, a real one that had to work and stuff like that. So I spent quite a time working for Lockheed in California. And when we first moved there, Bobby was pregnant. And I was going to say when we left. No, she wasn't pregnant when we left. When we first moved there, she was pregnant with the first of our 4 kids. And I knew, being a father, within 2 months of that birth of Linda, I knew I needed help. So I told Bobby, and we were going to church regularly. I told her, I said, I need to, become a Christian. I wanted to be baptized because I needed the guidance of a father in my life. And what better one can I get? And she decided, because she was baptized, but by her parents' request, not her own. We were baptized together, and that's now like 60 years ago. So that's kind of my story up to that point. So what's next?
So Roger stopped into my office about 3 weeks ago, and he just said he wanted to share, and there were some things that he wanted to share from his heart about the church, or about life and ministry and things, and you just had some words of encouragement to the church.
Okay. What is it? Yeah, okay. I got bigger print here.
Okay.
So anyway, just wanted to share. Why I wanted to share was I wanted to encourage single parents. Back in those days, that was not thing that was talked about a whole lot. But within the town, they just knew through grapevine, we called it, that things weren't right there. And, I never knew anything about the divorce. Not in front of me did my mother talk to me, or even after we moved to Des Moines. My dad stayed in Manly. Now, I knew who he was, but I didn't know him because I didn't have any kisses or any hugs or any fatherly advice. I'll just say I got that more from the YMCA than a church or a family, because that's what helped me. I went to a camp at YMCA, not to a church camp. I also went on canoe trips twice up here to the Boundary Waters from Des Moines when I was in the 8th and 9th grades. So that was how I was introduced here. And that was kind of the Christian background, because it is YMCA for Christian, Young Christian Men's Association. But what I was getting at, I guess, is that Bobby was baptized with me, and she was the took the leadership of making sure that I was there and doing what I was supposed to be doing. So I first want to encourage single parents that can be lonely and difficult at times, but God can reward your efforts, and I'm living proof. Reflecting back on the 22 years of my early life, my conclusion is this: God connected me through the love, joy, peace, kindness, and I added patience of my mother, as given by the Holy Spirit. Mothers are not perfect, but I can look back and I can underline several of those qualities in her. And I'll just add there, my mother, during the whole time, never said a bad word about my father. And I think that's the most important thing, is a child seeing the relationship of the parents, even if they're not together. They could be separate, but if they are patient and kind and that, but can't with a child, because the child is I wrote down here, it's not about us, it's about how the child feels. And they can observe and hear, but it's really how they feel. So that's what's so important. Secondly, I was not the smartest kid in school or college, average grades, but I was dependable and worked hard. God chose to honor me that with a great job, career, and advancement at Lockheed. So what I wanted to do is just share about my many ways that I saw God and His goodness in my life, and even before I became a Christian. So you're never too young to, I think, observe and hear and understand what is going on in a family situation, and to be able to trust your parents, even if they're apart. That's no excuse for talking about one another and sharing them. So I get a little emotional. So and fourth, because a recent sermon to stir my heart to share about His work in my life. The parents' responsibility to the next generation is beyond us to live out our circumstances, focused on God, Jesus, and the Holy Spirit. The most important element of life is being connected to God, listening and obeying Him by walking with the Holy Spirit on moment by moment. I wanted to encourage all with this testimony of how God has worked in my life. And just to sum it up, I just said a couple things here. It's not about me, it's about what the child feels. And the thing I'm doing is I'm being a witness to you. I'm not judging you, but your child will be judging how you treat them. And overcome adversity together. Even, while you're partners, you might not always agree, and we don't always agree, my Bobby and I, but I counted back, and I don't remember, except I was traveling. I had to do some traveling, working, that we've been together in the house and in the same bed for, I wrote it down here somewhere, 21,000 days and nights. So I think I just kind of can conclude with that, I guess, that all this overlaps, and marriage is important also. So anyway, thank you.